I might, if you're good with it, like, can I ask you, how did Steph handle Christian's trade? Like, can we have some fun with that up the top?
Actually, I just talked to him before I did the podcast, and I was like telling him who you all are, and he was like, "Oh wow, he's at the Bay now." And
Yeah.
then we went on and talked about Disney. So sorry, we didn't really
Okay,
talk about.
great.
That's
all
good.
good.
Perfect.
That's a good
That's
thing.
But
all
I'll
the
have to
attention
tell
needed.
you, I should have put my jersey on because he was my favorite player before I left Charlotte, and I have his jersey.
I love it.
And so I have to
Oh,
tell
I'll get
you, I just have a slight crush on your husband in a great way. Like he is.
So, okay, I was going to offer up a jersey. Would you rather Ed's jersey or Christian's jersey? Whichever. You can take them.
Christians.
Oh,
Christians.
Christian. I'll send.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send you one of his new ones. His new jersey, 23.
There you go.
As long as can I have one of? Can I have one of your kids? Any of them?
Absolutely. You can have all three of them.
Yes, nothing would make me happier. Okay, I'm done. I'm on my life goal, my
this
daily
is a
goal.
great podcast. I think we can just end it right here.
Welcome to Your Mom podcast. Your mom's podcast.
This isn't any podcast. This is your mother's podcast.
My mom's podcast.
Nah, dude, she's your mom.
With Ashley Addison and Lisa McCaffrey.
Your mom is a podcast.
Shut up, dude.
Whew, we have a dandy for you today. Welcome to Your Mom. I'm Ashley Adamson, a sports broadcaster for the Pac-12. About 4 months ago, started this podcast with Lisa McCaffrey so that I could crowdsource parenting advice as I try to raise my 5 and 3-year-old here in San Francisco. It has gone well so far. My kids are still alive, so that's good.
Thriving.
Lisa,
yes,
4 sons who all play or coach football, most notably Christian McCaffrey, the newest Bay Area obsession, who just joined the 49ers, and I think has fit in nicely so far.
He's happy.
Seems to be doing okay.
He's very, very, very happy, and that's all I care about. So good.
That's all you care about.
Yep.
Good. Well, when you're throwing and running and catching touchdowns, that's a lot of joy that is derived from that. Well, no matter how you found us, glad you're here. I just want to say too, thanks for the kind words and support. The people are listening to the podcast. We didn't know if anyone was going to listen when we started this thing, but
we're going to talk.
We were just going to talk and record it and see what happened. And it turns out there is room for the 4 millionth and one podcast on parenting and mom. But like I said, you guys are in for a treat today. So I don't want to belabor the point, but our guest is a woman who is an author, educator, the founder of a Christian Montessori school. She was a big time athlete in her own right. She has raised 3 incredible kids, including one of the best and most famous basketball players on the planet. And yes, we're talking about Sonya Curry. She recently wrote a book about what it was like raising 2 NBA sons, Stephen and Seth, and her daughter, Sadell, who played volleyball in college. The book is called Fierce Love. And Lisa, you said it. It's perfectly titled.
Yes. It's a great read for any parent out there. It's a great read. You can pool some of her parenting style and adapt it to your own, because it's a really, really, I wish I had read it when I was raising my kids. How about we say that? But it's a great read. It's really fun.
You know, it occurred to me while I was reading her book that there are a lot of parallels, Lisa, with your and Sonia's path. So you're both big time college athletes in your own right. You both married professional athletes and went on to raise kids who became superstar athletes. Your most famous sons are now playing professionally in the Bay Area. Christian, obviously, is, we know, with the Niners, and Steph with the Warriors. And I know that Steph is a huge Panthers fan since he grew up in Charlotte. So I'm not sure how he handled the trade news, but I guess we can just ask his mom. So let's bring in the one and only, absolutely delighted to have Sonya Curry with us on Your Mom. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you, Sonya.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this.
I guess I was going to ask how Steph handled the trade, but how did you handle the trade? Because now that I understand that Christian McCaffrey was one of your favorite football players.
Well, now that I'm not in Charlotte anymore, I'm happy, because now when I go to the Bay, I can go to the games there. So I'm okay with it. I mean,
okay,
good.
Yay! Yeah. Let me call his agent and make him sign now the paper. We're waiting for that. Now we're good. Okay, good.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I do have some empathy from the fact of whenever you just have to move, it's a lot. But
oh my gosh,
you know, the Bay is a great place to be. And come on, let's bring another championship to the Bay. The Warriors, we want more.
Let's do both. How fun would that be? Oh my gosh. Let's manifest it.
Yes.
warrior right there. Just, this podcast is notorious for manifesting something and it happening. Not kidding.
Okay.
So,
We're
yep,
2
a
for
warrior.
2 our last 2 podcasts. So we
Yes.
manifested Christian to the Niners, and
Yep.
then Lisa said, I need to manifest some wins, some big wins. And then,
Boom,
last week
boom.
Christian showed up. So yeah.
I
So
love
whatever
it.
you
with
want to
you.
manifest, you let us know.
Yeah.
We'll
I'm
make
with
it happen. Well, so I'm excited to talk about your book, and we're going to dive into
Yes.
that. And there's so many great stories. And Lisa and I were both we've been talking about it the last few days, all the different incredible things that you talk about in the book. But I want to start sort of big picture with you, like an update on how things are going. You release a book 6 months ago in which you talk about some big life transitions and sort of finding your new purpose. How would you describe this current phase of life that you're in right now, and where are you?
Well, I am actually in Florida, and this phase of my life is really just establishing my foundation. And wow, I don't know why that's like getting me a little emotional here, but just my foundation again and establishing a home again. It's been 40 years, and first time on my own. And you think you can do all this stuff on your own because you don't really have to. But then when you do, it was a big transition, but it's a beautiful thing as well. It's a great opportunity to just reconnect with me and who I am, and um, do something different, do something new. So I'm trying to just embrace all the challenges that come with it, and just turn it all into something really, really good and beautiful.
Yeah,
And
I
I know
love
you
that.
will after reading your book. My gosh, it was so inspirational. First off, you're an amazing mom and amazing person. I look back where you came from, literally a trailer. You were living in a
Yes.
trailer to look
Mhm.
where you are now. And and you kept God in your life the whole time, uh,
Yes.
first and foremost, and you raised your kids that way. It's so inspirational. And if you have not read this book, Fierce Love, it is every mom should read this book. It is so good. Even if I had half your strength, I would have raised my kids would have been basketball players. How about that? No, but it's so inspirational. It's so wonderful. And I like it teared up. And I love the phase. I'm in the sort of the same phase that you're in now, in that I always define myself as being a mom. And now I'm not a mom anymore. I'm trying to regain myself. And I remember a lot in the book you talk about you cherish the quiet times. And at the end, you went to the spa. And I can totally relate to that. And you're just trying to connect with yourself. And
Mhm.
it's amazing. So it's great you're doing that. And I know something great's gonna come out of it. As
What's been the best part for you in this new phase? Because you mentioned the challenges, but what's been the beauty in it?
Well, honestly, just kind of surface wise, is I get to just do whatever I want to do.
which
And really not
Sounds
even like, I had
amazing.
a friend of mine say, I was just telling her all the stuff I was doing and just when I was doing it and just waking up and doing this. And she was like, wow, so you're just actually just doing whatever the heck you want to do. And at first I wanted to correct her, like, no, no. And I was like, you are right. Like, I wake up when I want to wake up. I go to bed when I want to go to bed. And
you
it's not
watch whatever
contingent
shows. Yeah.
what I on anyone else. And so, it's, buy what I want to buy. And it's just that's kind of been really fun. But I didn't even realize it in the process of it. I didn't realize it. But that's been the freedom. I think
Yeah.
just the freedom to just be me and find out who me is. So,
What have you discovered then
Yeah.
as you've continued? Because I think that's the one thing is that as when I was younger, and a lot of people, I think you feel like you know who you are, right? I mean, early on in my 20s, I felt like I'd kind of figured myself out. I was an adult. And then you get to your 30s and you realize, I had no idea what I was doing in my 20s. And now I'm just entering my 40s and I'm a much different person even than I was 10 years ago. So, what have you sort of discovered?
I think I've discovered the truth. No, I won't say the truth. I think I've just confirmed for myself how strong I actually am. And, people would say that, and then, but, they didn't really see the back parts of raising the kids and doing all that. But in the midst of having to just do this on my own, I am strong. Like, I didn't really believe it. I just was being mom. as you can relate to. You
Yeah,
just
but
get up every day and you're just like, how do you do what you do? I don't know. I just don't think
well,
about
okay,
it.
look at your life. You went back to school with 2 kids. You moved your kids back to Virginia Tech and finished your degree.
Yes.
Pat yourself on the back for that. And then you have 3 kids and you started a Montessori school.
Yeah.
And like Norman, like, okay, can you give yourself a little credit there? You are strong. Just reading the book, Fierce Love, perfect name. You are one of the strongest women I've read about. It's pretty amazing. And you raised 3 great kids. So give yourself credit. You are strong. So I'm so excited for the next chapter to watch what you do. Because
And I think with that strength was just really, what was I just crazy? Just crazy and just doing this stuff versus, being very intentional. I'm a very intentional person.
yeah.
And I'm also learning that I'm also just a very like fun person. Like
Mhm.
just put me in a room with some people gonna make me laugh, and I like people around me that we're just gonna just enjoy each other and have fun, and I miss that part of me. Like,
Yeah.
you
Good.
know, and so I like her. Like
Oh,
I'm really learning to just really like myself.
That's good.
this
That's
is
awesome.
beautiful. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's awesome. And I think there's a ton of women who are listening who can probably relate to exactly all these different phases that you go through. Let's talk about your book. And Lisa said it, like Fierce Love. It's the perfect title, a memoir of family, faith, and purpose. And if you haven't read it, just don't waste any more time. As soon as you're done listening to this podcast, go buy it because it's fantastic. When did you decide to write it, Sonia? Why and when?
Well, I actually started like when Stephen first kind of came on the scene at Davidson, and people would just stop us all the time and just compliment us on him off the court, on the court, just who he was, how well-rounded he was as a person. And then Seth comes along, and then my daughter, and we'd often get stopped in Charlotte a lot and say, how do you do it? How are oh my gosh, you should write a book. And I would laugh it off. Like, right, I'm just a mom. Like, it's no big deal. Like, yeah, I've done my job and I'm happy about that. But everybody's doing their job, so I'm no different or special than anyone else, and my children's careers and paths are just theirs. And so whether you're a basketball player, lawyer, doctor, manager, in a grocery store, it doesn't matter as long as you are successful and joyful and happy is what I think that all parents strive for with their children. And so yeah, I've laughed it off, and then I just kept hearing it more and more. And then probably about between 10 to 8 years ago, inside here, I just kept getting this, you need to write this book.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh gosh, what is this? Because I don't like to write. I actually have a fear of writing. And so we wouldn't go away. And then after the kids went to college, I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll write a book about raising them since everybody wants to know, and how God's hand was in all their choices of getting to college, hearing God's voice. And all the time, not realizing that I was hearing God's voice in me to write this book. I was hearing the voice of the world telling me they wanted to know about it.
Mhm.
And so then 3 years ago, right before COVID hit, things just started happening. One, I was like, all right, I'm ready to write this book, but I need a manager because I don't know how to go about it. And then my daughter-in-law works at CAA, was like, oh, let me introduce you to a book agent. Loved him immediately. And then he was like, all right, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to get you a list of ghostwriters. Bam. I had 11 to choose from, chose one. He was perfect. Next thing I know, okay, we're going to send it out, and had 9 offers for the book.
Wow.
Wow.
And things were just happening like this. And I didn't even have a clue how to write a book or whatever this
Wow.
process was. So next thing I know, we're writing it. And then it took about 2 years to kind of pull it all together. And then they set the release date, and everything just was on track. Never delayed, nothing. Everything
Wow.
just happened. And so it was just God saying, me
This is
following
what
the
you should
voice
do.
of God, and
Mhm.
God lining it all up for it to happen.
He said, "You just take that first step and the dominoes will all fall into
They do.
place."
The
And they
doors
did.
open, and we
Yeah.
have to walk through them. Yes.
Did you learn anything? I'm a big believer in that things don't become real sometimes until you write them down.
Yes.
Going through the process of figuring out what you wanted to put in, I'm sure there was plenty of stuff that didn't make it in. If you wanna share any of those stories, go ahead, but no, did you what did you learn through the process of writing it?
Now, not so positive thing that I learned about myself and the counter of being a strong person was how much of a pleaser I was.
Mm,
Because then I had to really wrestle sometimes with telling the truth, helping people with the truth, being vulnerable with the truth, but then also possibly hurting other people's feelings
yeah,
and really wrestling with gaining success or attention on the backs of somebody else's struggles or challenges, even though it involved me and my
sure.
kids in certain situations. So, learning how scared I was of what other people were going to say by me being very vulnerable and wanting to tell stories. And then, two, just how much of a pleaser. I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings,
Mm,
but needed to tell the
The
truth
truth, right.
for it to be real and for God to be able to use it the way that He wanted to. So I'm very much didn't think I was a pleaser at all.
Huh. I
Did
don't feel reading it that you threw anybody under the bus at all. That was not, I mean, I think you did a great job of telling your story in every situation.
well, thank you,
And I
thank
don't look at you as a pleaser because you were strict. You were very strict. You were no dating till 16 and you held fast. So
you. Right.
we had a lot of rules, but we caved on some of them. So that was impressive. I'm impressed. So yeah, good job on that. Yeah.
yeah.
Do your kids ever come back and say, "Wow, mom, you were too strict," or, do they have any saying? Are they raising their kids the same way at all?
It's really interesting watching it because they are using some of the things, but some of them they've changed. And so, or haven't adopted. And so it's nice watching it because even when I wrote the book and I would go back, which the book itself ended up being, after going through my personal situation just happened, ended up really being a very healing process for me because I got an opportunity to look back on those beautiful years that we had with, the family as we were and raising the kids and doing all that. It was really beautiful. So it was kind of edifying that all even though we are where we are right now, all those other years, 30 plus years was not for naught.
Yeah,
Right.
They were perfect for that time and that season of what and how we were as a family. And so that was beautiful for me to be able to do that. But I did wrestle with um was I too strict sometimes? And did I have to really be that crazy and all? But you know what? You do what you can do, you do what you know what to do,
Right.
and you just keep moving. And so yeah, they do say that
Yeah.
sometimes I was a little too strict, but they actually appreciate it now as adults. And now that they have their children, they appreciate it.
That's good.
yeah,
Yes, I remember one of the things in the book that struck me as relevant is when you said the drive time, when you would drive from Charlotte to Lake Norman, it'd
Yeah.
be a 45-minute drive, and those were some of the best moments, and I started thinking of my own situation too. I just remember I'd have all 4 in the car, and we'd drive to games and gyms and whatnot, and looking back, we'd play music, we'd all sing and make fun
Yeah.
of each other and laugh, and then it was also emotional after a game sometimes too. If one didn't do well or they fouled out or whatever the case, it was always a time to like talk and review what had just happened and sort of bond. Those were the strongest bonding moments looking back. And
Yeah.
like you said, sometimes they were only 45 minutes or 30 minutes, and we were all together in one car, compact and without the rest of the world there. And it
Yes.
was beautiful. It was a
yeah.
beautiful moment in time for looking back. So I
Well,
appreciated that. That was
it's like
great.
those precious moments, right? As a
Yeah.
parent, you get them and they're fleeting, but it's why it's so important and why it's helpful to read books like this because
Right.
you appreciate it more because you have to, right? Because that's all it is. It's these moments that we get. I You said something, Sonia, that I'm curious about, that the book sort of came out and you'd finished it and it was being released right as you're going, from what I understand, is right when you and Dell are splitting up.
Mhm.
Did you think about including any of that? Did you wrestle with how much you wanted to include about your guys' story and journey as a couple?
No, I really didn't. Like in the process, even with the publisher and them editing, they wanted to add some of that, and
Mhm.
the sale value and would
Sure.
increase and all of that. And I was just like, the Lord wasn't. It was intended to talk about raising my children
Mm.
to that point. Now, whether a book comes after this about all that, and not necessarily about the breakup, but if it was about that. And I mean, Dell was right there in all of it, and wanted to give him credit for that. And he would say, I let her take care of the home, I let her take care of the kids. And so, that was the beautiful thing. It was like, you know, unfortunately, things happened, in my personal life, in my marriage at the same time. And I wrestled with God with that. I was like, what in the world? Even though, the decision was made, and God's like, it wasn't my fault, but it's just like, but it was the season. So again, I just am just waiting and waiting to see how God just pulls all this together, and creates a different type of opportunity and blessing to then be a blessing to other people, because that's truly what I believe we're all here for, is to live our lives to be blessings for other people and use our experiences. And we have to be strong enough to share them and
Yeah.
not worry.
Yeah.
And so that this was I grew up a whole lot in these last 3 years.
Mm.
Wow.
Wow. That's amazing perspective, and what a beautiful lens. If we all could like look at life through that lens, the world would be a much happier, more joyful place. There's no doubt about it. What's been the thing you've gotten asked the most about in the book? The reaction.
Wow. Wow. That's a good question. I think I get asked a lot about, like how hard was it to really, when I would set a limit or a expectation at home, to really, really, really follow through with it. And like with Stefan, and not going with this girl, not dating till they're 16, and
Right.
not going with this girl. And then, with Sadell, and having her temper tantrum in her room, and me taking everything out of her room and all of that. And
I love
they're
that.
just like,
Yeah.
you really, really did that? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't even you can't make that stuff up, right?
And
Um,
the super glue,
and the super glue. And I was like, and I can only tell that story now, but I would be afraid of DSS if this
Yeah.
book would have came out.
I almost called social services.
Then
Oh.
I'm like, and they're like, so, and then they saw the strength in that. And I'm like, but what you didn't really, but hopefully it came through in the book, was, even like with Sadell saying, you're the worst mother in the world, and me going, well, go upstairs and you can
Move.
figure out if you want to live somewhere else. And how, I mean, like, just deathly scared I was, and afraid that she was actually going to choose to make that decision. And I'm like, oh gosh, if she comes down here. So, and all that, and setting the limits and all that stuff, and sounding all okay, mom, and I'm strict, was a whole lot of fear behind that.
Right.
That
Yeah, they saw you vulnerable. They could
Yeah.
see you. And if did they read the book? Did they read it?
Yeah.
Did they
And
read
they
the
actually, what people, and I've shared it several times, is they actually picked the stories they wanted me to tell.
Wow.
So before I wrote the book, I asked them to give me at least 5 things they remember about, their childhood, and about, me raising them. And so the stories that are in there, they picked. So
Wow, that's cool. Because I was
Who's
gonna say, did you have to get approval? But no,
Yeah.
they gave them to you.
Right. That's Sonya. Whose choice was it to do the one where the 2 boys were competing and they pulled the chair out from the other one and they got suspended?
well,
Who picked that story?
that was actually Stefan.
Okay.
Seth claims to not remember anything any of the details of the situations. He says he doesn't remember a
So
thing.
he was at fault. That's
And no, he didn't. He never did anything wrong, and I was always crazy.
Yeah.
But that's that middle child. They.
Right.
Birth order is a real thing, and I know you
Yeah.
said that in your book, but I believe that fully as one of 4, and, you guys have all have multiple children. It definitely impacts how you view the world. I gotta tell you, Sonia, I read your book this summer, the bulk of it when I was on a plane to the East Coast, and the timing of when I read it will stick with me for forever because I was on the plane and it was the clinching, it was game 6 of the NBA finals, Warriors and Celtics. So I've got Steph on the screen and I don't have my headphones, so I'm like sort of watching it. But I'm also reading your book at the same time. And the chapter that I started, and it was right after they won, he had been named MVP. There's like this joyous celebration, just larger than life smile. And I get to the chapter where you talk about that Steph Curry almost didn't exist. And that day in Richmond, Virginia, sit in the car with Dell. For people who haven't heard the story, can you just share a little bit because it was the most poignant thing that I'm sitting here reading this and I'm looking at Steph on and I was like in tears as I was having that experience of reading the book. What was it like to share that part?
It was healing to tell the story in the book, because I know there's lots of people out there, men and women. I know it really comes down to the woman's body and all that, but there are men out there that are trying to be partners in making these kind of decisions, and there's partners, men out there who don't even get a say in that because it just happens and they don't ever know about it or not. But the simple fact that people are having to make this decision every single day, every second of the day out there that we'll never know about. For me to be able to share that story with people, to know one, so many people are struggling with it, and it's okay. It's okay that you are struggling with it. The second is that, you know, I, the decision that I made to keep him at that point is also countered with the decision that I made to not carry through with a previous pregnancy. And so God just bringing it all together and just showing me being able to just say, hey, here's this decision I made in this point, and look at the blessing that he has become. And I just thank God for that. And I just say to God that it was meant to be. And to not carry judgment. You don't have to carry a lot of judgment forever. Give ourselves some grace in making the decision with what we had to make the decision with when we made it.
Yeah.
But all things, my favorite scriptures, all things get work together for the good of those called according to his purposes in Christ Jesus. And so it all worked out. And there's Stefan,
Yeah.
and look what he's doing. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing to me.
And look at what he's doing. I think the thing when I look at
Sorry, I'm old.
Curry
No, it is.
no, and
It's
I
so
appreciate you sharing that with us, honestly, and I really, really appreciated and respected and love that you were vulnerable to write that in the
yeah.
book because I think, especially in the time that we're in, it is so poignant and so important because people probably look at you, Sonia, and think, she's got it all. She's this perfect, wonderful, like, and even now and with all the things that have happened, I'm sure that in reading the book, people understand a completely different side of your life and decisions and things that you've gone through. Had you told Steph that story before? I mean, obviously, I'm sure the book wasn't the first time you read it, but had you talked to him about that before?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. We agreed that along the way, any things that had happened in our lives at a certain point that we felt developmentally that they were able to receive it in a good way to help them as they developed and grew as like teenagers and then young adults. Then we would share it with them. And I shared in the book the time where I spoke in front of the church and Sadell was there, and how important it felt, more so for her to hear it, because she's going to struggle with those things. If she doesn't make good decisions, she could be dealing with that. And what I didn't want is for her to feel like that would be something she couldn't come to me about or whatever. And just to show her that I was a human being, because I think that's we hide so much from our children, and they look at us and think, well, mom, you don't understand, when you can never do. They still will do some of that anyway. But just thinking about my daughter again, being intentional. I always wanted to parent them in a very intentional way to equip them for when they weren't with me, that they could like remember, oh, okay, well, mom shared this with me, or and to also understand how real, how vulnerable they're going to be in situations, and they're not going to be perfect. And somebody asked me in that decision, if you knew what you knew now, would you have made the decision about having the first abortion? And I said, that's such a hard question to ask, because I didn't have the faith that I had now then. If I would have had the faith that I had now, then probably not.
Right.
But that's always one of those things where you're like, if I knew what I knew then I'd make a good decision.
Right. Right. That's good.
Hindsight
You
is
can forgive
2020.
yourself. Yeah.
So that's
And
why
that's
these
so
books
good
are
that,
good.
yeah,
That's
really
why these
good.
books, and
Yeah,
sharing our
exactly.
experiences are important, because
Yeah.
then we can be that for other people.
Right. Wow.
Amen. Amen. And I think, again, just to go back to what Steph is doing right now, and all three of your children are amazing. I want to talk about your daughter too, because I think sometimes she might get lost in the with the two NBA sons and everything that they've done. I want to hear more about your daughter, but just real quick to put the bow on what Steph has become. Like, yes, he's the superstar, 4 NBA titles in 8 years. I mean, what he has done, the best three-point shooter in the history of the game, all these things. But when I think about Steph Curry, I think about all the stuff away from basketball. And there are all of these, we talk about athletes as role models, and there are all of these, role models that we see where they give money to certain causes or they support certain things, and that's great. But like Steph walks the walk in a way that I've never seen, truly, Sonya, in my entire professional life covering athletes, and what he does for girls and for women, him going back to finish his degree, which I'm sure made you very proud.
Yeah.
Which that was incredible.
Can
When
I
you
have you
look
call
at,
my son?
yeah,
Drop out,
exactly. We
please.
need to get you on the phone with Christian.
Yes, please. It's like
But when you look at what Steph has done away from basketball, like, is there one thing that you feel the most proud of him, or that you just hold in your heart with such joy that he's become the person that he's become?
I, Again, off the court, like I see him with his wife, and that fills my heart like no other. Like, he is such a champion for her.
Mm.
He so supportive. He is very empathetic to everyone in his life, almost to a detriment sometimes. Like, he has to learn to balance that. I love seeing what they're doing with Eat, Learn, Play, and how they're, blessing so many families, how family is so important to him. And then the biggest compliment that I get from other people is that when you meet him and you talk to him, it is like no one else is in the room, in the space. And that's how he makes all of us feel.
Yeah.
He pays attention. And for as much stuff is going on around him, he's a little attention deficit too, uh, and busy. He always just focuses in on you, asks you questions, and he listens when you respond.
Yes.
I don't do that. I'll ask you a name, and 30 seconds later, I'm like, and what was your name again? Like, it's almost like, get me through this encounter.
Yeah.
He really
He's
makes
present. Yeah.
people feel seen. He's present. And that
Mhm.
I am so proud of.
Mm.
I am so proud, because those things, yes, he's full of empathy. He's just present, and that really is what has made him successful on the court with his teammates, and with any endeavor that he does, and with being a champion for women and women's rights and equality, because he has such empathy for everyone. If he sees a deficit somewhere, or he'll do what he can do. And so I know that was a long
No.
Oh, I loved
answer
it.
to
No,
your
but it
response.
reminds me of a little thing you did. Klay Thompson was getting criticism, and you
Oh,
put out the most beautiful Instagram post to honor him and make him, feel good about himself. It was just that was beautiful. That was great. And so you wonder where he gets it. Let's see.
Did you hear from Clay? I assume
he
that
did.
meant,
He texted
That
me
was
back,
great.
and was thanking me for it. But I
yeah.
did that. My mother's heart just came out, and I was like, dude. A little bit of it was a little hard, but I wanted to be soft. It was just like, dude, you don't live
No,
for
it was
everybody
beautiful.
else.
No,
Focus.
that was awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome. And I remember I was at the Elite Eight at the Chase Center this past March, and I look down and I'm like, oh my God, that's Steph Curry. And he's there with his three little ones
Mm.
and just taking in basketball. It was when he was injured, so he wasn't playing, but he's just taking in basketball, being a fan and being a dad. And I'm sitting there going, and it's just him and the three kids. Like Aisha wasn't there. Who's the youngest? Remind me his younger
Cannon.
one. Cannon.
Cannon.
He's pouring popcorn all over himself. Dude's sisters are dying laughing, like they're just playing together and he's smiling. And it is just it's a dad with his kids at a game. And meanwhile, I'm like, God, you're one of the biggest superstars on the planet. And it was just such a cool moment. And he's so real. And there's a million different stories like that we could tell. But it is a credit and a testament, certainly, to you. And obviously he deserves a lot of credit too. But I love what you said about the way that he treats Aisha. I think that as a mom, that's one of the things that you want for your son the most, is that they understand how to treat women and how to be a partner. I have like 8,000 things that I still want to ask you. And I know that we're running out of time here because you've got a hot date at Disney World.
Yes.
You got a hot date with Smicky.
Yeah.
Jealous.
But there are a few things that I want to make sure we get in. So one of the things that I loved in your book that I think will resonate with so many people who listen to this podcast is this empty nest, the empty nest phase of life. And you talked about that you defined yourself as a mother and that it was sort of your essence. And so there's a few different points that you talk about in the book. One was Steph's decision to leave Davidson after his junior year and declare for the NBA, and how hard that was. And after the press conference, when he declared that you went to a movie by yourself.
You went to August Rush, like
I
the
did.
perfect movie to see. I remember that.
And you're just, but like the image of you sitting in a movie theater, having a moment, like feeling this total loss.
Mhm.
And then you realizing like, I need to just show him love and support and I need to let go. And I think that's something that every parent feels, whether they're going to go to the NBA or whether they're just going to leave the house. Like it's this empty nest phase. When your daughter left, you talk about it being like a midlife crisis and the sadness you felt
Oh,
walking
yes.
by her room. So how did you get through that? And for parents who are going through that phase for the first time, what advice would you offer?
Again, I'd often tell them to give themselves grace, to
Mm.
sit in those feelings, because a lot of times we just shove them down, and they can lead to making some other not so good decisions. I mean, you hear about people going through midlife crisis and all those kinds of things, but I really think like we don't give ourselves that opportunity to feel it and then go, it's it's okay, and let it pass. We fill it with other things. We, just kind of move on, and we really don't get a chance to just celebrate it. And so I would say, embrace it, feel it, celebrate it, and then get in touch with what's next, because there's something else coming. And that's what I did with going on the retreat, was just, what's next, Lord? Like, I need to check in with you. I need some direction, because you do. I mean, I really thought when Sadell left, I went to my doctor, did my physical, and long story short, he was, as I was explaining to him what was going on with me, he was like, you're like going through some depression. And I was like, oh, what? Me? Nah, that's not, no. And he was exactly right, because it was a crucial um, step in just phase in my life ending. And so we just got to find some new direction and um, focus on that. What's next?
Lisa, you know that feeling.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. That's why I'm sitting here doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Trying to find
Yeah.
myself.
It's a new purpose. No,
Yeah,
I
no,
think that's real.
I can everything you said, I can 100% relate to. And then
Yeah.
you start trying to fill it with dumb things and you realize this is so vapid. I need something real. And I love that you went on that retreat and you could just sit and listen to yourself. And you went on a hike for the first time, which
Yeah.
I thought was so powerful because that's a lot of times I'll just step out of the house and just walk. We have the woods nearby. And that's some of my favorite times, favorite moments. And
Yeah.
I cherish that. And that's when I feel like closest to myself and, can analyze what's going on in my world. And I don't know, I love that. So yeah, that's a great assessment of what empty nesting is.
Yes.
Well, and I'm reflecting on how both of you, and I mentioned at the top, but how both of you guys have had some parallel paths. And maybe the biggest that we don't talk about enough is that you were both big time college athletes. So Lisa played soccer at Stanford, which is where she met Ed. Yep, she's a
Long
big time soccer player.
We played with the rock. With the rock.
Sonya, you played volleyball at Virginia Tech, which is where you met Dell, and then you both raised these superstar athletes. So Sonya, I'll start with you. I'm curious, like, did it or does it ever bother you when Steph and Seth are always talked about as the sons of NBA great Dell Curry, when like obviously your genetics and parenting played a huge role in who they became? Does it ever get under your skin?
You know what? It in the very beginning, it kind of did, and that was just the competitiveness in me. I was like, hey. But then at the
No fun.
end of the day, I'm like, you know what? Not really, because even the boys would say they got a certain thing from me, like the tenacity and all that stuff from me, and the fire. And so they would say that. And as long as they know where it came from, I don't care what anybody else says.
There you go.
Good
There
answer.
you go.
Yeah.
Lisa, how about
So,
you? Does it
Yeah,
bug
I
you
would
too?
second that. Exactly. As long as the boys know where it's coming from. That's all I care about.
exactly.
Yeah, no, but I look back, I'm like, I laugh. I'm like, I got way more credit for being a good athlete. I actually feel than I really was. Like, I just feel like I've become like this amazing soccer player. With every touchdown Christian has scored, I'm better and better and better. I laugh with my soccer friends. I'm like, wow, evidently I won a gold medal and did all these things. I'm like, no, I
Yeah.
didn't do any of those. And I'm not spreading those rumors for the record, but
I
yeah,
am.
yeah, you
Look,
are.
I'm not correcting them
Yeah,
either.
well, thank you guys. Thank you. I appreciate it. It makes me feel
Amen. Amen. Oh, I love that.
uh,
Okay, Sonia, we're gonna do something a little bit different at the end here, which we haven't done, but maybe a new segment on your mom. Because we only have a couple more minutes. We're gonna do rapid fire, like 5 or 6
Oh gosh.
questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. So number one, after Steph, who is your favorite player on the Golden State Warriors?
Clay.
Steph has won 4 NBA titles in 8 years. As his mom, which of those championship runs did you enjoy the most?
The very first one.
Why is that?
It was the first one, and it was kind of like the breaking of the ceiling. Like,
Yeah,
what's next?
I love that.
And it was in Cleveland, so that made it better.
Even
but you're not
sweeter.
competitive. You're not competitive.
Yeah, they're all sweet. They're all sweet. Favorite dish that Aisha Curry makes?
Oh my goodness.
It's a hard one, probably.
Oh gosh, yes.
You can name a few. You can name a
I
few.
would say she makes her mama's Jamaican chicken, sweet chicken something.
Yeah.
Sweet chicken something.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Is that in her
Yes.
cookbook? Sweet chicken
jerk
something.
Jamaican chicken.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Favorite non-basketball memory with Steph?
Oh my gosh.
It's a hard one.
Lisa?
Yeah.
It's okay.
This dude is almost 40 years old. I can't remember. Oh,
Yeah.
Lord.
That
Well,
is a
I'll
hard
say
one to
after
pick.
tonight, it'll probably be this.
There we go. Okay, perfect. We won't make you late for that then.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's-
And then the last thing, we mentioned your daughter. And again, I think I can't imagine what it would be like growing up with 2 older brothers that were Steph and Seth Curry. Tell me your favorite thing about your daughter.
Her strength. Like she just went through, the IV process, IVF process, and had her first child.
Oh,
And just watching her go through that, and then his birth, and I got to be in the room. That girl is rock freaking solid.
wow.
And I was just amazed afterwards. I was like, babe, you are the, excuse my language, SHIT, because she rocked all of that.
I think I know where she got that.
I was just gonna say, and that comes from a long lineage, from what I understand of
Yes.
Candy Adams.
Granny
There's
Candy,
some good
yes.
stock, some
Yes.
good stock in that family of women.
Strong women. I love
Oh,
respect
okay.
strong
If you
women.
could do anything different, would you go back and do anything differently, Sonya?
With the kids?
The kids,
As a
yeah.
mom, yeah.
As a mom?
parent.
You know what? No, I don't think so. I think it's all worked out the way that it was supposed to have worked out. Um, so no, I wouldn't. Mm-mm.
Good. It's a great answer. Well,
Mhm.
it has been a delight to talk with you. I hope we can do like a 2.0 of this, because like I said, I think Lisa and I each have like 30 more questions that we wanted to get
I
to.
know. I just want to hang out with y'all. And we can
Hey,
do
come
it.
on.
anytime.
And now that you're in in the Bay, let's do it,
So,
because my goddaughter plays basketball at Stanford.
well, that's
Oh,
what I was gonna say,
whoa.
Cameron
Number
Brink.
22,
She's
Cameron.
amazing.
I love it. I'm going to go to a game now that I'm going to be out there. I'm so excited. I can't wait
Please
to
come.
go
They
back
play
up.
South Carolina at home
Yes.
this year
Okay,
and
good.
everything.
You
We
So
have to
tell us
hook up
you
then.
tell us
Let's
the
go.
game that you're gonna go to, and I will get Lisa out there, and we will
Yeah.
all go to a Stanford women's
And
basketball
come
game.
Let's
to a football game. I'll get you a jersey, and then we'll go to a Warriors game, and I want a jersey.
let's
That'll be, how
I
fun
like
would that be?
let's
I
do
like where
it.
this
We'll
is
go. We'll
headed.
wake up and go to Mayfield Bakery and have that cappuccino, best thing I've ever had. It's like $1 million, but it's worth every penny. And then we'll go to a game.
Are
all of us
you paying? Are you paying if it's $1
Well,
million? Because
let's have. I don't know. We'll have Steph pay.
I'm on a budget now.
Me too. Are you kidding? Me too. So maybe we'll have the boys
my
take care of
God.
us, and they
We'll
can
have the
pay.
boys pick up the tab. I like that. Oh, you ladies are awesome. Fierce Love, a memoir of family, faith, and purpose. Go buy it.
So good.
There's so many good stories. Sonya, thank you. This was
Yeah.
just an
Thank y'all for
absolute
having me.
delight.
Thank you so much.
And say hi to Mickey
And have
and
a
to
blast at
Steph
Disney
for us.
World.
Yeah.
I will.
I
I
love
will.
it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Hi, Sonya. I don't even really know what to say after that interview, Lisa. She was
Yeah.
awesome.
I love her.
I love her.
She's
She was
such a strong woman. And so deliberate and intentional. And I need to learn how to be more like that. So that was just incredible. I loved it.
no, she's amazing. And I think when you think about how introspective she is, and what really stood out to me was when you read her book, she comes across as this like fiercely strong, strict,
Yes.
purposeful, faith driven woman. And she is all of those things. And then in getting to meet her and talk to her even on a screen, like
Yeah.
she's got this beautiful lightness and joy and sort of levity
Yes.
about her. And I love that she said, like, I found that again. Like I realized that I'm fun and that I like to have fun and that I'm joyful. And it just, I don't know. I'm sure that there are a lot of women out there and you go through all these different things in your life. And when a marriage dissolves and the way it impacts the family, but what she talked about with it wasn't that those 30 years with Dell didn't mean anything.
Right.
They were for that time.
Right. And they were
And now there's a
beautiful.
new phase.
And they were
Yeah.
and exactly. And now she's like evolved and she's in a new phase of her life and she's embracing it and loving it. And that's really, really amazing to see for a lot of women out there in the same situation or similar situation. There's hope, there's light, there's, joy coming out
Yeah.
of things, even if you go through hard times. So, wow, she was fantastic.
She's amazing and just couldn't be happier for her on this new phase and chapter that she's in, because you can tell. I love that she's like, yeah, I guess I am just doing whatever I want. And that
Loved it.
feels pretty damn good. Oh, all right. Well, thank you as always for listening. Please subscribe. Go check out our YouTube channel. We got a ton of great content for you over there. And the last thing, a little bit of a teaser. So I hear there's some new reality show involving a young lady that you know fairly well.
Yes, rumor has it the reality show is dropping Monday night on TL something, TBS, TL something. The one of those T's, Culpo Sisters reality show is dropping Monday night at 7:00. We're having a big watch party here at my house. All my friends were going to come dressed as our favorite Culpo sister. We are like 50-year-old women dressed completely inappropriate that we should not be wearing that, but we're gonna go for it. And we're gonna watch with bated breath. So
I
it's so
love that.
fun.
Now, is Christian gonna make an appearance?
He is not going to make an appearance.
Okay.
He's not
All right.
in it. He didn't want to be in it. He's not, but he supports her and her endeavor and this next chapter for her. So
Good.
it'll be fun.
Well,
They're a
I
great
can't wait.
family. It's going to be so fun to watch. It'll be fun.
I'm pumped. And you mentioned the family.
Yes.
Olivia's mom, Susan,
Mhm.
is going to join us on the podcast. She is our next guest.
Yes.
So
She is
she'll give us, I'm sure, some deets behind the scenes.
Oh, and I love her.
I can't
Yes.
wait. She's amazing.
She's
I've
amazing.
gotten to know her just a little bit. And as always, when you love a kid, you usually just have to go meet their parents, and you're like, oh yeah,
I
that
get it.
makes
That's
sense.
why.
I get
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
it.
No, she's different than I think most people will think she is too. In a good way. In a good way. It's going to be great. So
last
Yay.
thing, I really am going to manifest this happening, since we're now 2 for 2 on the last 2 podcasts of manifesting things to come true. You and me and Sonya Curry are going to go to a Stanford women's basketball game.
Yes. And we're going to go to Mayfield Bakery, have a croissant and a cappuccino. And then we're going to
We have to say it like that, a croissant.
God bless me. And then we're going to go to a Stanford basketball game. It's going to be so fun. It's going to be amazing.
And then maybe one of your single sons will end up marrying Cameron Brink. That's what the other thing I would say, because Cam Brink,
game on.
She's freaking awesome. So good at basketball. Fabulous young lady. And
Great.
if we're just going to if we're here to create, excellent athletes and human beings, I think we're combining. Right. That's the key. That's
all I care is I just want her to like come and take care of me and cook for me and like, just like cater to me and just, that's what I want. That's what.
Well, you're going to get 4 daughter-in-laws.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty, I hadn't really thought about that. You didn't get any daughters.
Nope.
The first go around, but now you get 4 daughter-in-laws and you didn't have to raise them. You just get to
I
have them wait on you.
Yeah,
exactly.
After the hard time, the teenage years, I get them after they've evolved.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
You kind of did this right, I think.
Did I? We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
In retrospect.
So far, so good, but we'll see. Moving forward.
Awesome. Lisa, you're the best. We'll do it again next week.
Peace. Love you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.